I'll try to keep this succinct because I have a million stats that I could give on why I wanted to start this project and, all sorts of stories. But effectively, the important thing to understand about the senior care space and the elder care space is first that 79% of households that are headed by someone over 65, so a senior, have one or more spare bedroom in the home, and over half have two or more spare bedrooms. And this comes from, you know, have just buying a really big house when you're younger. It comes from your kids moving out. Maybe you're an empty nester now. It comes from being widowed or divorced. All sorts of different factors can contribute to it. But effectively, you have this large group of seniors who have extra space in their home, and then you have this huge demand for housing. And so, what we wanted to do was combine those two. We wanted to match the seniors who have that extra space in their home with someone who was looking for housing and had a couple free hours a week. And what the concept was that instead of paying rent, what they would do is they would assist around the home. You can think of it kind of like an au pair or a housing for work exchange, however you want to conceptualize it. And the work that these people are providing is kind of twofold, or really it's threefold. But one is they're providing companionship. And so you can see that emphasized here on the website, live with companionship and in-home assistance. And so the companionship aspect is important because there's a kind of an epidemic of social isolation among seniors. And what you have with this social isolation is a huge threat to their health. And the Surgeon General put out this report on social isolation, and they said that being socially isolated is equivalent to, as a health risk to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It leads to higher hospital readmission. It leads to increased mortality. It leads to a myriad of different health risks increases. And so that's one of the big things that we wanted to provide was companionship. And then the other is in-home assistance. So we're not talking about the really intense caregiving assistance that a professional caregiver might provide, like, assistance, transferring from a bed to a wheelchair or bathing or incontinence or any of these really challenging issues. What we wanted to help with is what's called IADLs, which are the kind of earlier things that a senior might start to struggle with that may require them to move out of their home into an assisted living facility or some sort of other facility. And those are, assistance with transportation. Maybe the senior has stopped driving. Assistance with meal preparation. Maybe the senior has arthritis and it's difficult to do the fine movements involved in cooking, or maybe they have a neurodegenerative disease like Parkinson's, and it's becoming they get fatigued more easily. So doing errands or cooking or all sorts of different tasks around the home are getting harder as they get older. And then the other aspect of the task is also the tasks that are a little bit risky for a senior who's not as sturdy as they used to be. So changing light bulbs, taking the mail out on a wet day, or taking the bins out to the street on a wet day, grabbing something from the attic, just the little things that maybe a grandkid or a kid would help out with if they were available. And that's what our housemates were providing. And so to dive into the website here, you can see an example match, and a senior woman with a young woman who is, the housemate in this example here. And what we're emphasizing is that live with companionship and in-home assistance, exchange your spare bedroom for a trusted housemate who brings friendship, added safety, and a helping hand to the home. So kind of, you can see those three things that we're pitching. And so we go into that match a little bit talking about how the senior has a spare bedroom and how the helper lives with the senior and provides assistance and companionship. And so you can see what we're talking about here, again, is daily social engagement, a safer living environment, and mutually beneficial housing. And so I touched on a little bit of those, but what we were really emphasizing as to the benefits of this and what we were seeing as the benefit to the people that we were working with was first off that companionship. So having someone in the home with you each day. So they're around in the evenings, whether they're studying at the dining room table or cooking dinner, whatever it is. These are, housemates that are intentionally there to engage with the senior and provide that daily companionship of, maybe it's not an hour of sitting down and talking about the day, but some small interactions each day, and then maybe watch a movie one night or go on an errand together another day. But providing that consistent companionship was a big focus. The second was that they're providing 10 hours of practical assistance each week. And so that assistance is, as I mentioned, some transportation, housekeeping, errands, meal preparation, assistance with technology, respite care, really a whole spread of different things that they could assist with, that we saw from different clients. But just a lot of things that can be more challenging as you get older. And then the third thing that this housemate really brings in is a vigilant presence. So a lot of seniors who live alone have concerns about their safety, whether they're worried that they're going to fall and no one's going to find them, or they're worried about health risks, or nervous each time that a contractor comes over because they feel a little bit more frail and a little bit less aware than they used to be. And so they're concerned about their own safety. And so having someone in the home as an overnight presence who's there and can respond to emergencies or keep an eye out for risks can be a big benefit to both the senior and their mental health, as well as their family, who can be less worried about them knowing that they can always call the housemate to see if the senior is doing well, or just knowing that there's someone keeping an eye on, mom who's living alone, and that she's, up and about each day. And so those were kind of the three big things that we saw as the benefits of these housemates and why we really wanted to place them with seniors, and in particular, seniors who are living alone. And so by the end of it, we had, over, I think it was 220 or 250 different housemate applicants in the Austin area who are interested in these roles of, hey, how can I live somewhere for, almost free, and in exchange for housing, just use a couple of hours a week, provide 10 hours of practical assistance each week in exchange for housing. And so the housemates were really engaged. And so whenever we had a senior come in, we were able to match them up quite well. But the big focus of the website and what we were doing here was really trying to reinforce the social proof, that we're a real business, that we're providing a real service, because there's such a trust aspect involved in what we're doing. We're placing someone in your home. Do you trust us to do that? Do you trust us to find someone really good? Is this a real service? Is this a scam? Because yeah, honestly, saying that you get near free assistance or near free housing, it sounds like a scam in some senses. And so, we included a lot of different information, from an interview from an Irish version of a similar service about this exchange to our advisors and investors. So we had an advisor who's a gerontologist who did his residency at Stanford, who's really helped us understand in what roles can our housemates be helpful and how can they assist around the home without putting themselves or the senior at risk. And so that was great, as well as, other interviews that we did, and all sorts of stuff walking through that process, as well as reviews. But really, the key aspect is what I was talking about there. And we go into more detail, again, talking about the benefits of why it's a good service for them and how it helps. And then also talking about, who are the housemates that we're placing. And so in this paragraph here, you can see we're talking about how our housemates are, professionals and mature students from different ages. We had students from Duke, UT Austin, Austin Community College. We had retirees and teachers, nursing students, Tesla engineers. We even, had a retired doctor. So, a whole spread of different people, all with a couple hours free each week that they were willing to use to exchange for housing. And they all had different motivations for wanting affordable housing. Some people just actually wanted to really have that social engagement of having, kind of a pseudo grandparent figure, a pseudo parent figure, or some wanted a really quiet housing environment. Some wanted the meaningful kind of job aspect of helping out a senior, as some, just wanted the financials of, not having to pay for housing, because it was a financial benefit to them as well. But, we talked about that whole process, and, again, trying to reinforce why you should trust us to put someone into your home and why you should trust the person that we're bringing in. So aspects like degrees and jobs were great for that. But effectively, we would get calls from seniors, or interest forms, and they would call us and tell us all about what they wanted assistance with, and about their home. And so this is an example host. For privacy reasons, we can't show you a real host, but this is a mid-journey generated woman here, and we kind of talk through her home, and we take all the information that she would tell us during our call about what task she wants help with, where she lives, who she wants in a housemate, and we put it into a profile like this. Again, password protected for privacy reasons. And we would, get into the home, the spare room, some photos of that, as description of the space and the amenities, location, all of that. And then we would also get really deep into the tasks that the housemate is providing. And these are important because we need someone with compatible schedule. So there's kind of two different types of tasks. One is at convenience tasks. These are the ones where it doesn't really matter when you do them. It just matters that they're done each day or each week. And so making sure that if you're in charge of laundry, it doesn't matter if you really do it on Thursday night or Wednesday night. It just matters that each week it's done. And so these can fit a schedule really compatibly, because the person can do it whenever, so long as it's done. And then there's also time specific ones. So let's say that the senior wanted you to cook dinner on Tuesday and Thursday, and it's between 5 and 6 p.m. Then we need to find someone who has a schedule that's compatible with that isn't in class or isn't working at that time, to ensure that they're able to complete that for the host. And so that's certainly a part of our processes, ensuring compatible schedules. And then this year, and so then we would take that information, we distribute it to, like I said, we had about 250 housemates. And so we distribute it to different housemates and recruit more if we needed them. And we'd narrow down from that pool of housemates. We'd interview a dozen or half dozen on behalf of each senior, narrow it down to our two favorite candidates, and then background check them and do all that due diligence. And then we'd send to each of the seniors, or as we call them, hosts. We'd send the host two profiles of our top two candidates. And so this is an example, just about me, again, for privacy. But we talk a little bit about them. We have photos of them. We're trying to make it as personal as possible so that they get to a point of kind of trust quickly with this person. And so photos of them showing that they're a real person, family, activities, dogs, all sorts of stuff. And then we get into the details about them, where they go to school, what's their job, did they pass the background check, do they have a vehicle, as well as answers that each person provided, kind of explaining why they think they're a good housemate, all of that information. And we'd send, like I said, two profiles to each host. The host would read through those. They would make a decision on which housemate they wanted to interview, or if they wanted to, they could interview both. And then I would go with each housemate to the home. We'd sit down for an hour and chat, see if it's a good personality fit. Give it a chance for the housemate to see the room, see the home, all sorts of that stuff, and ensure that it's a good personality fit. And then if both parties were happy, we'd get them all the information that they needed for contracts and such, to kind of close out that arrangement. But it was it was a great process, and the people that we served and got to work with were really happy with the experience. And then the last thing I'd mention just on this profile is one thing that we saw over time that became more and more important was just the notes from the interviewer. So I would put notes as to why I thought each of the housemates that I thought were a good fit were a good fit. What came up in the interview that made me think, what, this is a really good fit for Betty, and her home, for example. And so over time, these became, longer and more detailed about past experience, personality traits, all sorts of things that came up. And hosts, potential hosts became very reliant on these, because they were just kind of curious about our assessment, which is, a little bit of what we expected. We expected this to be a very manual process, a very hands-on, walking people through, reassuring them kind of process. And that was very evident on the reliance of, why did Calvin in his interview think that this potential housemate was a great fit for me. And, like I said, people became really reliant on those, which is a great indication that they trusted the work that we were doing, and were excited about the people that we placed with them, and kind of the due diligence that we had done to narrow it down to good candidates there. But yeah, that's effectively OB Helpers kind of walking through it, the service that we provided, why we did it, and yeah, why people were trusting us to put people in their homes, and why they even considered opening their homes to strangers. But yeah, take care.